That's good, isn't it? Brilliant. I've got the world-leading expert in live video, and coming on today, or certainly the UK's leading expert. And I completely ballsed up the beginning of that. So anyway, how are we doing? It's Content Club Live. We've moved to a new Tuesday slot, and it's going well so far. But yeah, we've moved to a nice Tuesday slot to talk about all things content over the next few weeks and months. We've also moved to a fortnightly schedule as well. So we're doing this every 2 weeks now. I found weekly just a little bit full on in terms of my schedule. However, so today, what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about live video. And all of the little hiccups which you can see happen occasionally, and some of the different live platforms, and some of the ways of overcoming confidence, overcoming the ability to get live, to use live video for your business. Obviously quite important and quite useful recently and this year, since more and more businesses are moving to an online space. So I thought it'd be really useful to talk to Ian, who I have met several occasions and know well from various conferences and things. Remember, you can subscribe to find out about these shows, and you can get an email about them when we're going live. So you need to hop on over to remotevideoteam.com/subscribe. We'll, like I say, we'll run these out every couple of weeks from now on. And yeah, and we've also got as well, I've just recently launched, actually I launched it a while ago, a Facebook group, which is Content Club. So this is Content Club Live. We're going to be doing Content Club over on Facebook. So that's a group where you can join and get together with other people and have a chat about content. And I'll put this link down in the comments because it's a little bit long to copy out, but it's there at the bottom for you so that you can see it. And it's facebook.com/groups/content club RVT, which stands for Remote Video Team. So let me bring on Ian today. Hello, Ian. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's great to be on the show. And yeah, it's kind of, we all have those technical problems, don't we? I mean, I'm still having the technical problems from time to time, and it makes them human.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to be honest, it's one of those things that I don't actually let them bother me too much. I've spent quite a long time teaching, and you know, having sort of various tech problems just go wrong on me to the point where eventually just go, look, it's a learning curve, and I like to change things up every time just a little bit. I mean, eventually, I suppose you get to a place with all this kind of stuff where you're pretty smooth with it because you've ironed out all the creases, but you have to make mistakes in order to learn what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Oh, yeah. And I used to hate making mistakes, and I now kind of like teach people that I say to my clients, look, if you're not making any mistakes, you're probably not doing live video enough. You need to be making those mistakes. Otherwise, how are you going to learn? So, but I still hate making mistakes, and I think we all do.
Absolutely. and a lot of the time it's to do with things like software, and then they change the software system on you, and then suddenly you've got to relearn where all the buttons are and stuff. Anyway.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay. So what I'd really love to talk to you about today, and I've titled this show "Overcoming the Hurdles of Live Video," because I think it's probably one of the maybe more nerve-wracking, more kind of challenging forms of content or of marketing. I think a lot of people possibly see it that way, but also quite a powerful one. So I thought it'd be really good to just cover over those 2 or 3 kind of core hurdles, and anything else as well that you want to throw into the mix. And then just so that people can get an idea of, firstly, how it works, because I think there's a bit of mystery around how some of this stuff works, and then also how they could actually press that live button and go live.
Yeah.
So let's start off with some technology stuff, because I know that's front and center a lot of the time with people. Do you want to, tell us firstly a little bit about what you do, and then let's quickly move into some of the sort of tech questions.
Yeah, well, I think asking the question, what is live video is important. First, live video is obviously broadcasting video to a live audience in real time. Although you can put in some pre-recorded video too, but the key is that you are broadcasting live, and there are lots of different destinations. There's Facebook Live, there's LinkedIn Live, there's YouTube Live, Periscope, Twitch. I mean, I could go on. There are dozens and dozens of these things, and there are different ways of doing it from a tech point of view. You've got effectively. Well, there are two main ways of doing it. The easiest option for most people is going live from your smartphone. Not all destinations support this. LinkedIn Live, for example, you can't use your smartphone, but Facebook and YouTube, you can do that from your smartphone. Or if you want to level things up a little bit, is to go live from your computer. And there are loads of advantages with that, such as being able to, you can schedule your live videos, you can bring in guests easily, you can use more professional equipment. And so that's pretty cool. And also you can play pre-recorded videos as well. And then there are more other options, such as there are the Mevo camera range and other devices which allow you also to go live from these kind of bits of gear, if you call them that. So in terms of what I do, I broadcast from my computer. I have a Mac, but I've also got a PC as well. But I tend to kind of broadcast from my Mac, and I use Ecamm Live with Restream is the software that I use. And the reason for that is I think it offers that sweet spot between power and ease of use, and I can broadcast to all these different platforms at the same time with Restream. I could go into more detail, but that's just the basic bit.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good overview, I think. And I suppose the important thing, I mean, as you said just there, that some of them are a little bit easier to go live on. So Facebook, for example, and YouTube, you can pretty much just press a button and off you go. LinkedIn's a little bit more complicated. Not everyone has LinkedIn Live at the moment. So I suppose we might not want to dwell too much on that, but you have to use a third-party piece of software. So we're using StreamYard here at the moment. And obviously the more complex you make it, the more propensity there is for it to go wrong.
Oh yeah.
But, also, it looks better. And as you kind of get into these things, I think you should probably try and improve the way it looks and kind of level it up a little bit. So, certainly sharing screens. I think that's probably one of the things that's probably quite important to people. But like you said, you can't do that when you go natively on YouTube or Facebook, can you?
Well, you can, but so Facebook is weird in that you can do it natively. You go to Facebook Live Producer, so facebook.com/live/producer, and then you've got the option to go live to your page, your profile, your group, and you've got a choice of either using third-party tools or using your webcam. And if you choose the webcam option, you can then share your screen. But weirdly, and I don't know why Facebook do this, you have to make a decision at the start whether to go live to stream whether you choose your webcam or your screen. You can't do both, and once you've started with your screen, you can't then go back to your webcam, which seems silly. So but maybe they'll improve that over time. But having said that, it's a lot easier to use tools, you could use Restream Studio or StreamYard or any of these tools are actually they shouldn't. That might not be the best place to start. If you're really nervous about the technology, then go live from your phone. But then use some of these third-party tools that work in your browser, first of all, because they're probably the easiest. And just have a little play around with it. And a cool tip is to go live to your profile and change the privacy options to only me. Or a lot of these tools will have the option to do a test broadcast so no one will see, or go live to a private group. So it feels like a little bit more like a safe place.
Yes, that's great. That's a great tip. And I say that actually when we talk to people about creating video content, so pre-recorded video content, that you don't have to publish it. You can just create it and stick it on your hard drive and just sit with it for a little bit. But yeah, absolutely. Small groups, perfect. And so I'm going to ask you a question which probably I wouldn't ask maybe, but I know that some people will. And I think it would be interesting to kind of maybe expand on it a little bit. So is there a better platform to go live on? Now, obviously, a lot of this comes down to demographic and where your audience are. But are there any other advantages beyond those things in terms of the options you've got?
Well, yeah, okay. So there's the common answer to that, which is demographics. Also, I think it has to be a platform that you feel comfortable with and happy with? Or there's all those kinds of things that you need to think about. So I suppose you're asking maybe more from a technical point of view and things like that. Are you
possibly, or I suppose in your experience, maybe to do with reach as well? I don't know if there are platforms that have a better reach. I don't know.
And that kind of, well, the reach question, it's a great question to ask. It will depend on how engaged you are on this. And this is something we were talking about before we started, which is, for example, LinkedIn. I was getting lots of really good engagement at the start, but I'm not getting so much now. And I think that's primarily because I've not been investing so much time in LinkedIn. You know, if you're a small business, you know, I'm a small business, and I can't be everywhere all at the same time. So my priority, I prioritized a couple of other networks. So for me, it's YouTube and Facebook. But if you're focused on one particular channel and you've got a lot of engagement on that, then definitely go live on that platform. So to give you an example, Periscope used to be a massive thing. It used to be one of the biggest live video platforms out there. Nowadays, it can be a little bit like a ghost town for a lot of people, except if you have a very highly engaged Twitter account. If you really get loads of retweets and comments and there's a lot of activity going on Twitter, then you might want to consider Periscope. Then there are other considerations, and that is, for example, the quality of the video and things like that. LinkedIn Live is actually, I think, is in terms of the video quality, I don't know what your experience is, but I find the quality is a little bit better than Facebook. Having said that, probably the best quality in terms of the resolution and the video quality is YouTube, because you can even, if you've got a beast of a system and a beast of an internet connection, you can even broadcast in 4K 60 frames per second if you really wanted. But my goodness, that's a lot of juice. So there's quite a few, and then there's a few other technical considerations. You mentioned with LinkedIn Live that you need to use a third-party tool, so you've got to take into account your technical expertise. You know, are you okay at kind of jumping through a few hoops and maybe using a third-party tool to use LinkedIn? If so, great. YouTube and Facebook, you can go live directly from the platform itself. So that's another consideration. And then, of course, comments as well. So I think now that LinkedIn Live now allows you to bring in comments to third-party tools. So it's now within StreamYard, within Restream, within Ecamm, you can now view the comments. But some platforms, very few now, I'm trying to think actually, that you were probably looking at the more kind of the rarer, the more specialist live video platforms that don't give you comments. So that's another thing to think about.
Yeah. Okay. And speaking of comments, I have actually got a comment, but it says Facebook user. So I think possibly because we're going out as a sort of secondary broadcast to the Facebook group.
This is a group. So they need to. So if you're broadcasting to a Facebook group, you need to encourage the people within the group to click a link. So, for example, you're broadcasting on StreamYard, and StreamYard gives you the ability to click on a link for them to be able to give permission. It's a bit complicated, but to give permission for StreamYard to use your data. So it's a bit, if you're using Ecamm, there'd be a different link. And if you're using Restream, there'd be a different link. So that's a pain, because you then have to hop over to the group and ask who they are.
Okay. Well, maybe the person who said hello in the Facebook group can identify themselves, and then we can say hello back. Okay. Hopefully we're not putting people off too much at the moment, because you're right. I mean, there are little things that you need to iron out, which is, but I suppose this is all maybe slightly more advanced stuff. So streaming to multiple platforms, for example, is something that you move on to eventually. Yeah. Great. Okay. And so, I think it was Emma Twamley. Hello, Emma. How you doing? Yes. Okay. And Rachel Howarth. Hello, Rachel, as well. Nice to hear you. You're watching as well. So let's move on then from the sort of more technical component then to probably the bit that people have the most challenge with, and that's the sort of actually, what you're going to say, how you're going to present, how are you going to kind of get the confidence together? Now, I mean, obviously, I think I was saying this before we went live. I've got a history of teaching, so I'm maybe a bit more used to sitting up in front of people and talking. But some people aren't so much, and there is something nervous about, nerve-wracking about pressing that button. But what can people do in order to, once they have pressed that button, to feel a little bit more prepared or a bit more confident?
Well, I think actually the work needs to happen before you press the go live button to prepare yourself a little bit more. So, for example, actually pressing that go live button can seem really scary, and you can come up with loads of excuses in your head. So one of the biggest excuses that people can come up with that make it difficult to press that go live button and make it difficult to experience the live experience is the tech. And so I'm not going to go back on the tech, but sometimes we can use the tech as an excuse. Like you think, if only I had a better camera, if only I had a better microphone, if only my background was better. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't go live for a whole month because I was worried about that. And, and then I realized, do you know what? It's actually not that's the problem. I'm actually more worried about going live because I'm worried about what people think about me. And so it actually comes down to a mindset issue. So you need to start to do a little bit of preparation, thinking, well, what are the things that are holding me back from going live, and do a bit of work on yourself before you do that. Also, you need to know why you're doing it. You've got to convince the part of your brain who doesn't want to do this, who thinks you're going to die, by the way, because pressing that button, it thinks you're going to die. You need to convince that part of the brain that actually I'm doing this for a reason. I'm doing this because I want to communicate a message to my audience. I want to be seen as an expert. I want to grow my authority. So you need to do all of that. And then the other thing is to warm up your voice and your body. Think about your posture, and there's lots of exercises, vocal exercises and physical exercises that you can do. And then the final bit, and this is all before you press that go live button. The other thing is to practice. So we talked about practice to only me. You could practice with Instagram stories to get used to being in front of the camera and to get that consistency, and then practice going live to a group. So now it's time to press the go live button. And so you need to think who you're broadcasting this to, who is your audience. You need to know why you're doing it. You need to look directly through the camera, make sure that you're not looking at yourself. And most importantly, you have a plan and a structure so that you know exactly what you're going to be talking about. And I can go into more detail about the structure. But the first thing I would do is write down the first couple of sentences that you're going to say. I definitely wouldn't advocate writing word for word what you're going to say, because you'll end up appearing like a robot. But certainly what happens, I don't know whether you find this, but even today, I press the go live button and something weird happens to my brain. My brain goes to mush, and I even sometimes will stumble over my own name, So having that written in front of me, so it'll be something like, "Hi, my name's Ian Answer Gray. This is or whatever the show is." And then I'll welcome my replay viewers first, because they're the people from the future who have joined the show right from the start, before I then welcome my live viewers. And then, of course, you need to tell people what the show's about before you then get into the main content.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good tip about having something written down or having a bit of a backup plan, because I can testify to it today. I've got a little bit of experience, like I said, with working with technology going wrong when I was teaching, but when you're having to suddenly shift from here to what's going on my browser, it's very hard to multitask in that respect, and you're kind of having to think about two things at once. Having been able to go on autopilot a little bit with something. I just talk nonsense and stuff comes out of my mouth, and as long as I'm talking, then I feel that's okay. Because silence is the thing where you start to panic, isn't it? When you actually go silent, then suddenly you kind of start to get a bit sort of everyone's watching and I'm just up here alone by myself sort of thing. But if you can fill it with some words.
Well, particularly if you're doing it. So that's another interesting point that you brought up, which I meant to mention, which is it's a lot easier if you're on with a guest. If you do a solo show and it's just you, it's really hard, because if you think about what we're currently doing at the moment, it is a bit weird, isn't it? Because we're either at home or in our offices. I'm in my upstairs office, and I'm standing in front of my camera talking, and I can see you. Actually, I can see you if I look down, because my screen's down there. So I'm having to look up, and I'm talking, and I can't see the audience, and it feels weird, particularly if it's just you on your own. So you have to think about, you have to imagine that your audience is actually there, and even like print out a photo of somebody and put it behind the camera or something, just to make it a little bit more real.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, and I think the other tip that sometimes people forget, and you see this, and we've seen this a lot over lockdown with all of the different Zoom meetings and things that are going on, that your camera can be there and your screen can be there, and if you're looking at the screen and not at the camera, you're not actually making eye contact. Yes. So looking down at the lens of the camera is kind of quite important, isn't it? Even if it feels unnatural.
Yeah, and that takes time to practice. I mean, I'm probably a slow learner. It took me a couple of months to train myself. And actually what I did is, so you can print out a picture of somebody. That's one way. The way I did it is I just got a piece of A4 paper, stuck a big hole in it for my webcam, and then just drew 4 red arrows into the center. And that seemed to do the trick for me. Eventually.
Yeah. And like you say that, I mean, like once you've done it a few times, these things become more habitual, don't they? But I think it's just kind of forcing the habit to start with.
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. So, and then thinking about so we've kind of looked at the technology. Is there anything else in terms of presenting or kind of, actually sort of getting started or kind of guiding yourself through a show that you want to add to that?
Yeah, well, there's quite a few things you can do. I mean, first of all, keep it simple. You also need to think about what type of live that you're going to do. So the format that you've currently got is like a show format. So it is more structured. There is going to be a beginning. There's going to be a summary. There's going to be a main section. There's going to be bringing in comments, and then there's going to be an end section. Whereas some types of videos might be you just walking off down the road and you're sharing your thoughts. It could be, so there's a great acronym which my friend Sam Ashdown came up with called BLAST or BLAST, depending on which part of the country you're from. And it stands for, so B is for behind the scenes content, L is for local content, A is for a day in the life, S is sneak peek, so that's kind of exclusive content that you're showing. And then finally, the T is, and I'm going to forget what that is. It is
time for a cup of tea.
Advice. Time for a cup of tea. Tips and advice. So this is the kind of pillar content. And so, it depends on what the kind of show. But in terms of the structure, I think just make sure that you are structuring it in a way that makes sense, and you have a document. So I always have a Google Doc for every one of my shows, and I have everything that I need to remember in that, including the beginning and also the end, because I often will forget my call to action, and then I press the end broadcast button and I'm kicking myself because I forgot to mention the most important thing. So remember to have a document, and also the other document that you need to have is a checklist of all the things that you need to remember from a tech point of view, but also warming up your voice and getting things ready for the show. So that's the other document you need to have handy.
Brilliant. Okay, that's good. That's good. So, okay, let's have a think then. Let's move on to thinking about the actual content, like what you might. I mean, actually, you kind of touched on that when you were talking about Blast, and I love that. And actually, what I loved about it particularly was that most people only think about the T, which is the kind of tips side of it. So you see a lot of that now, particularly on LinkedIn as well, that people are moving to this sort of like, here's a tip for your website, here's a tip for your something or other, here's a top tip, and that's fine. And I think there is almost a point where you kind of get oversaturation with tips because we've seen so many of them. And I think those other 4 things that you mentioned about going behind the scenes and kind of what was the other one, sort of sneak peeks and that kind of thing, are just they're slightly more human kind of sort of side of content, aren't they? So it's kind of introducing you as a human being, or breaking down that wall a little bit. Obviously live video tends to be a slightly more longer form sort of form of content, doesn't it? So, and I don't know why that is, I suppose it's partly because of the way the algorithms and the platforms work, that it sometimes takes a while after you've gone live to accumulate a little bit of an audience. Like people kind of happen upon the show. I think we started off with 2 at the beginning of this show, and then it's gone up to 6 or 7. And as it goes, you kind of tend to pick up a bit of an audience, don't you? Is that why it's longer, or do you think there are other reasons why live is longer?
It doesn't need to be longer. It's as long as you want it to be. That's the first thing. So you could make it 3 minutes if you want. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. And also, I think at this point, it's important to mention that actually on some of the platforms, so Facebook and YouTube in particular, I think they're the only 2 you can do this with, is you can schedule your broadcast. So this means, like, say, for example, you want to go live next Tuesday at 2:00. You can schedule that within Facebook and YouTube, and you'll actually get a landing page for that video. So you can then share that out with your list. You can share that out on social media. So that's really important from a promotional point of view. So yeah, do think about that, because that's going to make things a lot easier. And then in terms of like the next stage, you then need to think about well, how long am I going to go on for? Well, it kind of depends on the show. You could, if it is a show, you probably do want to keep it to a set time, say 40 minutes, 30 minutes. BuzzSumo. So BuzzSumo is a tool that I think they're based in the UK actually, and they did some research. So they analysed lots of Facebook live videos, and they found that I think it was around 15 to 16 minutes, the number of interactions, the reactions words like comments and likes would increase gradually over that time, up to about 17 minutes, at which point it kind of then remained the same for the rest of the video. So I suppose from that, you could gather that on average, if your videos are at least 17 minutes, you're probably getting the number of people joining your videos. So yeah, if you go live straight away, people are just going to have to stumble across you, or you need to say, well, I'm probably going to go live this afternoon, so check out my profile. Otherwise, schedule your live videos, and then people can click on that, and you'll get likely to get more viewers right from the start. And then just play around with it. I mean, don't feel that all your live videos need to be an hour long. They can be between 3 minutes and 4 hours. In fact, I think on Facebook, it can be up to 6 or 8 hours if you really wanted to, but I think that might be a bit too long.
Yeah, maybe. I think, well, I mean, when you were talking about being able to go up to 4K on YouTube a little bit earlier on, what it made me think of is probably things like events. So, you know, if you're streaming a sports event or a music event or something like that, I suppose that's maybe where that comes into play a little bit more. But absolutely, I mean, scheduling is I would think, a very wise idea. I wish you could do it with LinkedIn. I think I was having a little grumble to you about LinkedIn before. As far as I can tell from my experiments with LinkedIn over the last kind of 6 or 8 weeks or a few months. So at the moment, I'm broadcasting to my personal feed. The other options I have are to broadcast to my company page, which has about 100 followers rather than 3,500 followers. Or I can post to a group. And the only way I could figure out to actually get a URL I could send out to people was to set it up as an event. But then the problem is that the only people who can see the video are the people who've actually signed up to the event. So I'm losing that sort of native audience, So there's no way of sharing this particular thing. So what I've had to do today is set it live, go and copy and paste the URL from this feed and put it into the event so that people can watch it from there. So
I think that's one of probably the best ways to do it. I mean, the other option that I do is so I will broadcast to lots of different places at the same time, so YouTube and Facebook and LinkedIn. But for LinkedIn, if you go to your profile, go to activity, and then go to posts, I think it is, and then if you share that URL, the advantage of that is that your live video will be right at the top of that page. So it's almost as if you're showing that video, not quite, but almost. So that's probably the closest you're going to get.
I have done that in the past as well, actually. But the events I thought were going to solve it for me, and they haven't.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I mean, like you said, it could be 3 minutes, it could be sort of a bit longer. Are there any kind of? I mean, I suppose it's different for any kind of business, but are there any sort of topics or any particular, things that suit live video better than maybe pre-recorded content or blogs or anything like that?
Not really. You can do pretty much everything you can do for a pre-recorded video. You can do for a live. Obviously, the production's going to be different. It's going to be more real, and you're going to stumble over your words. And in a way, it's I know this isn't the question you were asking, but actually, I have come to find that live video I actually find easier than pre-recorded video because I'm not worried about being a perfectionist. I mean, I am a recovering perfectionist after all. So, that's a big issue for me. So sometimes pressing that go live button, it makes it easier. But yeah, I think having a bank of themes is a really good idea. So I think if you can come up, so I came up with the Blast acronym. That's from my friend Sam Ashton. That's I can give you an idea of the format of the show. But then in terms of the theme, come up with 3 or 4 themes that you can choose. So for my show, I'm wanting to kind of break down the barriers of live video. So my theme number 1 is to do with confidence and mindset of live video. Theme number 2 is to do with the tech and the gear. And theme number 3 is to do with the content and marketing. And then that helps me find lots of different subtopics, if you know what I mean, from all of those things. So later today, I've got somebody on to talk about how to promote your live videos. That fits really well in my third one, content and marketing. And then sometimes I've had somebody in the past to talk about how to sound great, make your microphone sound better. So that's the tech and the gear. So that will make it easy if you think, well, what am I trying to do here? What are the top questions that people have? And can I put those into themes? And then that's going to make it easier for you then to come up with topics for your show.
Yeah, that's great advice, actually, I think. And broadly, this show is about content, but I always like to think of it as planning, creating, and publishing. And like you say, that's immediately kind of 3 subheadings that you can kind of look at.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good. And and then I suppose as well, when it comes to making the most out of that content, because I think I have to agree with you in terms of live video being a little bit easier, and that's from somebody who runs a video company and actually does a lot of kind of pre-recorded or crafted sort of video content, that you're right, you can't stop and kind of think about it too much. You can plan it prior, but once you press the button, you're essentially generating content. I've always liked the idea of interviewing people as well, which is a lot easier to do in this kind of format, because you're then, you're learning something from the process as well, hopefully. And I suppose, because it's actually enabled me to have quite a good steady flow of content up on the website, because I'm committed, because I'm tied in with other people. I've made a commitment to show up at a certain time. And actually, that's something I meant to say to you back when we were talking about getting the confidence to do it, that if you schedule it, you have to do it, and if you've got a guest, you have to do it, so that's another one that's quite good at maybe kind of helping you along the way. So yeah, absolutely. So, it can be easier once you get over those initial barriers. How else can you get the most out of it once you've finished recording? I suppose I'm thinking about repurposing here. So. Yeah,
that's a great point. And this is the bit I get excited about. And also just to add to you can actually do both pre-recorded and live at the same time. You don't have to make a choice. So actually within your live video, you can load in pre-recorded video as long as the majority of it is live, just to make that point. So I've come up with what I call the 5 Ps live video process. And we've covered the first 4, which is the first one is the planning, then there's the pre-promotion, then there's the production actually going live, and then there's the post-promotion. And that's the post-promotion is important because people, once you've finished the live broadcast, you then want to think about, well, you want people to watch the replay. And I'm a big believer in thinking on making your live videos into mini communities. So you can actually get people to come in and ask questions and get involved with the comments after you've gone live. I think that's really important. And so, let people know that you've gone live and they can watch the replay. But then you're on to the really exciting thing, and that's repurposing. And I totally see the power of blogging, for example. Blogging has changed my life. But for me to create one of my normal blog posts takes weeks and weeks of effort. It really does. And when it comes to live, though, if I produce a live video, so now that I've got my plan together and I'm a bit more confident with my live video, I press that go live button, and then 40 minutes or half an hour later, I've produced a piece of content, which I can then repurpose to all these other channels very, very easily. So from my live show that I broadcast every week, it goes into a podcast. I turn that into a podcast. So that's one other platform. It goes into social media posts and images and little snippets of videos, and it gets turned into a blog post, and also it gets broadcast on YouTube as I broadcast live on YouTube, but it ended up becoming a pre-recorded video on YouTube. And so you've got all these different platforms that you can broadcast to. And the great thing about repurposing is that you don't have to embrace all of those things right from the start. You can do little bits and over time grow that and build upon that. There are tools to help you as well. So if you don't like the idea of having to do it all yourself, there are some tools that will make it a little bit easier. For example, there's a tool called Repurpose.io, which will take your Facebook Lives or YouTube Lives, strip out the audio, and publish that as a blog, as a what do you call it, as a podcast. Or there's Descript as well. Descript will take your videos and you can edit them and edit them down and do lots of cool stuff too. So there's loads of tools you can play around with there.
Yeah, that's great. And I was talking on a previous show, which is on our website now, if you want to kind of look at it, to Amy Woods, who runs Content 10X. And obviously there's a lot of, I think that that's a repurposing business that she runs, but her preferred format for that starting point is live video, specifically because video is such a rich format. You can do so much with it, and it's long form as well, which means you've got plenty of stuff in there. Yes. So it's if you're doing particularly longer shows like this, I suppose there's a lot of scope for repurposing. Brilliant. That's so good. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to ask quickly if anyone's got any questions. I know we've still got a few people watching, and there's some people over on Facebook watching as well. So if you've got a question, just pop it over in the comments. I have to give 30 seconds or so for those to pop up because there's a bit of a delay. So just while we're wrapping up, Ian, tell me is there anything else, firstly, that we haven't spoken about today that you think is important that we could touch on?
Oh my goodness! Everything. I think we probably. Well, I will say this. So there's. I hope people don't feel overwhelmed after listening and watching this. Because we've talked a lot about a lot of technical things. We've also talked about how to get over the fear. But honestly, live video doesn't need to be complicated. Just keep it simple. Start small. Start with your first live video on your smartphone. Use a simple tool on the web like StreamYard or Restream Studio. Keep it really simple, and remember that the first. I'm sorry to say this. So this is an encouraging comment, but it will sound like it isn't. The first dozen videos, and I know you'll agree with me on this one. The first dozen videos that you do, I'm sorry to say, aren't going to be that great. They're probably going to be pretty bad, actually, in terms of the tech, in terms of you stumbling over your words. But the great thing is, over time, the graph goes up, the chart goes up. Your confidence levels are going to go up. You're going to learn from your mistakes. You're going to get better and better and better. So for goodness sake, don't do what I used to do and what lots of other people do and compare your first dozen videos with somebody who's been doing it for years and years and is on their 100th or 1000th video. Because of course you're not going to be at the same level as them. It's a case of just embracing who you are, being yourself, and don't try and be perfect. It's about embracing those flaws and just getting going. Because there'll be people out there that want to hear it from you. You're going to be the best person to communicate that message.
Absolutely. And I think as well that, because it's quite a new technology, I think most people understand, if things are going a little bit wrong, it's like they're not doing it. They're just looking at you kind of going, oh God, I'm glad I'm not doing that. But, actually what they're far more interested in ultimately is just the message and the ideas that you have to share. So, yeah. Absolutely. Brilliant. And where, Ian, can we find you? I've got your email address, actually, your web address here, actually, which I can pop up on the screen. That should be there. Where else can we find you? And, how can you help people with what you do?
Yeah, so that's probably the best place to go to, my website, iag.me, which is nice and short. My podcast is iag.me/podcast. So we talk about all these kind of things. So that's probably the best place. And then if you want to find out more, I've got a couple of courses on there. I offer coaching consultation, and I've just finished today. I've put the finishing touches on my Facebook Live course, which should be coming out in 2 or 3 weeks' time. So if you want to embrace Facebook Live, but actually it's going to be broader than just Facebook Live. It will work with YouTube and any platform you like. Going through a lot of the stuff we've been talking about today, but in more detail. Just go to iag.me and you'll be the first to find out when that's launched.
Brilliant. Okay, and I suppose you've been pretty busy over these last few months, I guess. I mean, not with the conferences so much, but with everything else. Maybe people knocking on your door.
It's. I feel slightly bad about it because I know it's been a very difficult time for many people, but it's been completely mad, and it kind of caught me a little bit unawares. But do you know what? I think because I've been so busy, it's actually kicked me up the backside, and to produce a lot more content. So, for example, the Facebook Live course that I'm doing, more on the podcast and more live shows and helping people. So that's been good. And it's also been good because a lot of people out there have been saying for a while, yeah, this live video thing. I totally see it. It's really powerful. I need to be doing it, but I'll do it next year. So then the lockdown happens. And they have to do it. And so actually it's been a really difficult time for people, but it's also been a great time for productivity and actually getting people out of their comfort zones and just doing it. So that's been encouraging too.
Yeah, there's nothing like a sort of an exterior force or a deadline or something to kind of shift you a little bit. And you're right. And I think once people have made that step, that they'll kind of stay there. And I suppose just generally the level of on the online presence, I mean, I've noticed it just on LinkedIn has risen generally. You know, it's going to become a bit more competitive, which is the sort of downside of it. So you need to kind of maybe up your game a little bit, I think, and kind of think a bit more creatively. But yeah, okay. We've had one quick comment. We've had a couple of comments come in actually from Martin. He said earlier on, he said, bite the bullet and do it. And then now he's said, oh, there we go. It's kind of mind-boggling but achievable, which is good. I think that's a good. I think it is, but it doesn't have to be mind-boggling. I mean, actually, the first time, so I was with Martin when he did his first live broadcast, and it was just a case of pressing that live button. I mean, he needed a bit of help to actually get him to do that, but now you can't stop him. He's going live all the time, and so actually, you know, just do it. Keep it simple. You'll probably make loads of mistakes. And then it's a case of upping your game each time. You know, so this microphone I've got here, my lighting and my camera, I didn't have any of this when I first started. I just had a simple webcam and a basic microphone. And over time, I've added to it. So I'm a big believer in bootstrapping your live video studio. Don't get worrying about the tech, and just over time, build it up slowly and you'll get there. Yeah, brilliant. Great. Okay, Ian, thank you so much for your time. I will possibly not see you in the flesh for a while, but I hope to see you somewhere soon at some point, maybe next year. But thanks again for your time, and good luck with the course. I'll keep an eye out for that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant.
Thanks.
Okay. So yeah, look, it's still doing it. I don't know why. It seems to want to have you on the screen rather than me. Right, let's
kick me off. Kick you
off, all right. Okay, I'll see you later. Kick from studio. Oh, it's actually called Kick Guest. There we go. Right, okay, so that's all for this week. Like I said, you can join me in a fortnight for another show. If you want to subscribe so that you can find out more about that, then hop on over to remotevideoteam.com/subscribe. That's all for this week. If you're watching this on a rerun, or if you want to add in any questions below, feel free. I'll see if I can answer them, or I'll ping them over to Ian if I can't. But that's it for this week. I hope you have a good, productive week.